Welcome back to Life Turns, the place where real lifestyle stories of heartbreak, betrayal, and shocking twists come alive. Today's story is one that will touch your heart and make you question what family really means. So sit tight, because this isn't just about a mansion, it's about 10 long years of being cast aside, forgotten, and then suddenly remembered when money and success entered the picture. I grew up in a family where love felt like it was rationed. I was the middle child, but somehow it always felt like I was invisible. My older brother and younger sister had the spotlight, the hugs, the words of encouragement, while I was left in the shadows. Every birthday, every family dinner, every holiday gathering, I felt like an outsider in my own home. My parents would smile at me, yes, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach their eyes, as if they were forcing themselves to remember I even existed. The first time I realized I was being excluded came when I was in college. I saw pictures on social media of my entire family gathered for Thanksgiving dinner. My cousins, my siblings, my grandparents, everyone was there except me. No call, no message, no invitation. I stared at those photos for hours, my chest tight with confusion. When I confronted my mom, she casually said they assumed I was busy with studies. That assumption would repeat itself again and again for the next decade. What hurt the most wasn't just the exclusion, it was the silence. They never asked how I felt. They never explained why. And year after year, the reunions came and went. Birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas dinners, even weddings in the family, I was left out of the guest list like an unwanted guest who didn't belong. Do you know what it's like to feel abandoned by people who are supposed to love you unconditionally? It's a pain that carves itself deep into your soul. I tried to compensate for that pain by working hard. I threw myself into my studies, into my career, into proving that I was worthy of being seen. If they wouldn't acknowledge me as family, maybe they would at least respect me for what I achieved. And I did. Against all odds, I built a company from scratch. I took risks, worked sleepless nights, sacrificed relationships, and poured every ounce of energy into creating something that would outlast me. Success didn't come overnight, but when it did, it came like a tidal wave. At first, it felt almost unreal. The contracts, the partnerships, the recognition, I went from the forgotten middle child to a CEO with my name in business magazines. I bought a mansion, not just as a symbol of success, but as proof to myself that I had made it. I walked through those grand hallways with marble floors and crystal chandeliers and thought, if only they could see me now. But deep down, I knew they weren't looking. They had never been looking. Then, after 10 long years of silence, everything changed. I was hosting a charity gala in my mansion. The place was alive with music, laughter, and lights that spilled out into the night sky. My friends, colleagues, and business partners were there, all celebrating the journey I had fought so hard for. I was in the middle of a conversation when my butler approached me, his face unusually serious. "Sir," he whispered, "there's a couple at the gate insisting they know you. They say they're your parents." My heart froze. My parents? The same parents who had cut me out for a decade? The same ones who never returned my calls, never cared enough to invite me to a single family reunion? Suddenly, all the noise in the ballroom faded, replaced by the deafening echo of my heartbeat. I couldn't believe it. They had finally decided to show up at my mansion. I walked slowly toward the entrance, my steps heavy, my chest tight with a storm of emotions. There they were, standing awkwardly under the golden lights of the front gate. My mother clutched her purse nervously while my father avoided eye contact, shifting uncomfortably on his feet. For a moment, I just stared at them. They looked older, more fragile, but their presence still carried the weight of 10 years of pain. "Why are you here?" My voice cracked, but I forced myself to stand tall. They looked at me with expressions I couldn't quite read: regret, maybe guilt, or perhaps just desperation. My mom was the first to speak, her voice trembling. We wanted to see you. We heard about your success, about the mansion, and we realized how much we've missed." Missed? The word cut through me like a knife. They hadn't missed me. They had ignored me. They had erased me from their lives until the headlines and the wealth made me impossible to ignore. I felt anger rising in my chest, hot and bitter, but beneath it was something even heavier, sadness. After everything, after building an entire life without them, they still had the nerve to show up as if nothing had happened. I could feel the eyes of my guests on me from the distance, curious about the scene unfolding at the gate. But in that moment, it wasn't about appearances. It was about years of unanswered questions. Why did they shut me out? Why did they pretend I didn't exist? And why now? Did my mansion suddenly make me worthy of being their child again? I stood there at the gate of my mansion, staring at the people who had given me life but had refused to give me love. My parents looked nervous, almost as if they were the ones out of place, not me. For 10 years, they had treated me like I was invisible, and now here they were, acting like they could just step back into my world. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, but the laughter died in my throat. Instead, I asked the only question that had been burning in my heart for a decade. Why? The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. My father finally cleared his throat, his voice deep but unsteady. We thought we were doing what was best. You always seemed so different from the rest of us. You were independent, you didn't need us the way your siblings did. We thought you were fine on your own. His explanation was like salt on an open wound. Fine on my own? Did he even realize what he was saying? They had mistaken my quiet endurance for strength and used it as an excuse to abandon me. My mother stepped forward, her eyes glossy with tears. We made mistakes. We thought we were protecting you, giving you space. But then the years slipped away, and before we knew it, it had been 10 years. When we heard about your success, we realized how much we had lost. Her words might have sounded heartfelt to someone else, but to me, they were too little, too late. Space? Protecting me? No. They had simply chosen not to see me, and now that I had built something greater than they ever imagined, they wanted to reclaim the role of parents. I felt anger bubbling in my chest, but also a deep sorrow that almost broke me. All those birthdays I spent alone, those holidays scrolling through pictures of a family that didn't want me, the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I had done wrong, all of it came flooding back. I looked at them and said, "Do you even know what it feels like to be excluded by your own family? To see everyone gathered around the table except you? Do you know how many times I begged God to make me enough for you to love?" My voice cracked, but I didn't care. The truth needed to be heard. My father shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting away. My mother wiped her tears and reached out a trembling hand, but I stepped back. For years, I had longed for her touch, her comfort, but now it felt foreign. I couldn't just forget the pain. I couldn't just erase the memories of rejection. And I wasn't about to let them walk into my mansion and pretend it never happened. The tension was thick, but part of me wondered what they truly wanted. Did they come for reconciliation, or did they come because my wealth and success suddenly made me valuable? I decided to test them. Why now? I asked, my tone sharp. Why not 5 years ago when I was struggling to survive? Why not when I was eating ramen noodles every night, working double shifts just to pay rent? Why now, when there are chandeliers hanging over my head and cars in my garage that cost more than what you ever gave me? My mother's lip quivered. Because we were ashamed. We didn't know how to face you after shutting you out. And then when we saw what you've become, we thought maybe you would give us a chance to make things right. The words hung in the air, and I studied their faces, searching for sincerity. Maybe there was regret, maybe guilt, but I couldn't tell if it was enough. I thought about my siblings, the ones who had happily joined every family reunion while I was left out. They never once spoke up for me, never once asked why I wasn't invited. They had played along with my parents' cruelty, and that stung just as much. Family wasn't supposed to be conditional. Love wasn't supposed to be earned. But in my family, love was a privilege reserved for everyone except me. I wanted to unleash all my anger in that moment. I wanted to scream, to slam the gate shut in their faces, to let them know the pain they caused had no expiration date. But another part of me, a quieter voice deep inside, reminded me that carrying anger for too long only weighed me down. I had carried their rejection for a decade. Did I really want to carry their return with the same bitterness? Took a deep breath and said, "You don't get to just walk in here and call yourselves my parents again. You don't get to rewrite history because I have money now. If you want forgiveness, it won't be because of this mansion or my success. It will be because you're truly sorry for the years you stole from me." My words were steady, but inside, my heart was breaking. I had waited my whole life to be seen by them, and now that they finally looked at me, it felt hollow. They nodded, their faces etched with guilt. My father finally said, "We understand. We don't deserve your forgiveness, not yet. But we want to try. If you'll let us, we want to be in your life again." His voice trembled, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his armor. Maybe he was sincere. Maybe he wasn't. But the decision wasn't going to be easy. I thought of the younger version of myself, the boy who sat alone in his dorm room on Christmas Eve while his family laughed without him. That boy deserved an apology. That boy deserved answers. And maybe, just maybe, he deserved closure too. I told them, "If you want a place in my life, then you start by acknowledging what you did. You hurt me. You abandoned me. And you can't erase that with words. If you're serious, prove it. Show me through actions, not apologies." Their eyes widened, and I could see the weight of my demand sinking in. For once, the power dynamic had shifted. I wasn't the invisible child anymore. I wasn't the one begging to be seen. I was the one holding the door to my life, deciding whether or not they deserved to walk through it. As I stood at the gate of my mansion, my parents waiting for my response, I realized this moment wasn't just about them, it was about me. For 10 years, I had carried their rejection like a wound that refused to heal. And now, for the first time, I had the power to decide how the story continued. They wanted back in, but I wasn't sure if my heart was ready to open that door. I led them inside, not because I had forgiven them, but because I needed them to feel what they had ignored for so long. As we walked through the grand hallways, I saw the awe in their eyes. They glanced at the chandeliers, the art on the walls, the polished marble floors. But I wasn't showing them luxury. I was showing them the life I built without them. Every brick, every tile, every inch of this mansion was born out of the loneliness they left me with. We sat in the living room, the silence heavy between us. I finally broke it. "Do you know what it cost me to get here? Not just money. My sanity, my peace, my relationships. I sacrificed everything to prove that I mattered. And while I was breaking myself to pieces, you were laughing at family reunions without me. So tell me, what do you really want from me now?" My mother's hands trembled as she folded them in her lap. "We want you back. Not because of the house or the money. Because we've realized how wrong we were. We missed out on your life, and we can't change that. But maybe we can be part of what's ahead." Her words sounded sincere, but a part of me couldn't stop questioning their timing. Why did it take success to wake them up? Why did it take a mansion to remind them I was their child? My father leaned forward, his eyes finally meeting mine. "I was proud of you, always. I just didn't know how to say it. I thought letting you be on your own was showing respect. But I see now that it was neglect. I can't take back the years, but I can ask for forgiveness." Hearing my father admit fault was something I never thought I'd witness. It stirred something deep inside me, a mixture of relief and sorrow. I looked at them both and said, "Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It doesn't mean everything is fine. It means I'm choosing not to let the pain define me anymore. But forgiveness has to be earned. If you want to be part of my life, then you need to show me you're willing to put in the effort, not just words." My mother nodded eagerly, tears streaming down her cheeks. We will. We'll do whatever it takes. For a moment, I almost believed her. But then I thought about trust. Trust is fragile. It takes years to build and seconds to break. They had shattered mine long ago. Could I really give them another chance? That night, after they left, I sat alone in the quiet of my mansion. The laughter from the gala had faded, leaving me with only my thoughts. I poured myself a glass of wine and stared at the city lights outside. My parents had shown up after 10 years of silence, and though they claimed to want reconciliation, I knew the decision rested on me. Part of me longed to have them back, to finally feel like part of a family. But another part of me was terrified of being hurt again. Days turned into weeks, and surprisingly, my parents kept showing up. Not at the mansion, but in small ways. They sent letters, called to check in, even volunteered at one of my charity events. It was awkward at first, but slowly I started to see something shift. They weren't just chasing after my wealth, they were trying to understand me. They asked about my work, my struggles, even my favorite books. Things they had never cared about before. One evening, I found myself inviting them over for dinner. It wasn't a grand affair, just a simple meal at my long dining table. As we sat there, I saw my parents differently. They weren't the perfect mother and father I had always dreamed of. They were flawed people who had made terrible choices. But they were trying. And sometimes, trying is the first step toward healing. I didn't let them off the hook. I told them plainly, it's going to take time. Years of absence don't get erased by a few dinners. But if you're serious, then maybe we can build something new. They nodded, and I could see the weight of responsibility settle on their shoulders. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they seemed ready to try. My siblings, however, were another story. When they heard my parents were reconnecting with me, they weren't happy. They accused me of trying to steal our parents away with my success. It hurt, but it also showed me how deeply twisted the family dynamic had always been. Maybe it wasn't just my parents who had failed me, maybe it was the entire structure of favoritism and neglect that poisoned us all. In the months that followed, I made peace with something important. My mansion, my wealth, my achievements, none of it could fill the hole my family left. But forgiveness wasn't about them. It was about me. It was about freeing myself from the chains of bitterness and allowing space for something better to grow. Whether or not my parents truly changed, I had already changed. I was no longer the invisible child. I was someone who had faced rejection, fought through it, and built a life worth living. And so, when my parents stood beside me at another charity gala months later, not as strangers but as guests I had chosen to invite, I realized something powerful. Life has a way of turning pain into strength, abandonment into resilience, and wounds into wisdom. My parents may have missed 10 years of my life, but they would never again have the power to define my worth. I looked out at the crowd that night, my parents quietly seated in the back, and thought to myself, sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. And after 10 years of not showing up, maybe, just maybe, they were finally learning how.